What up, what up? Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman, the host of this show, which I launched in 2015 to really demystify crowdfunding for you and for other people that are out there. And I'd say my number one wish when I started this podcast was that the people and the lives that I impacted one day would come back to me and share more great advice and tips with other people in the audience. And that's exactly what's happened today. You know, I call this karma. It's so cool when we have a student or a listener employ and use the tactics that we teach and the educational lessons that we share on this podcast, right, from other guests. They actually take action, they put that to work. And in this case, today's student actually raised $39,000, more than that, with their Kickstarter campaign. And I came on the podcast to share with you exactly what they did and how they were able to get funding using crowdfunding. The other thing I got to mention here when it comes to this is not only is this a great student success story, and they're going to share with you actually some new techniques that I haven't talked about ever before publicly that you can use to get traction and attention and pledges in the middle of your campaign, but I do have to mention that this product does have a religious connotation. So if that's something that might be triggering to you, I did want to warn you about that before you get into today's podcast episode. It's not heavy, in any kind of like theology terms, but it is obviously a religious product. So if it does trigger you, totally understand. But I would invite you to look at today's product launch for any author or anyone who's out there that wants to get funding for that kind of a product as one of looking at the marketing right behind this actual launch. The other thing that I should mention is that, I was adopted from El Salvador and I grew up in Massachusetts and I was raised Catholic. I would say at this point in time in my life, if anything, I'd probably relate with a lot of the Buddhist doctrines, a lot of the Buddhist principles when it comes to life and having kind of like a balance in life and karma and all that kind of stuff. But I don't personally subscribe to any kind of religious movement in that way. If anything, I'd say I'm spiritual, and I do love to have great, incredible effects with the work that I'm putting out there to ethically impact the world for the positive. That being said, if you do want to learn more about today's guest, I'm going to link up their campaign in the show notes. And also, if you want to get the fast track to actually launch a campaign just like this, if you want to learn how to put together a rockstar video, a compelling set of reward tiers, a crowdfunding campaign page that converts strangers into backers, you got to check out my free course on Kickstarter at the link crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter. That link is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter. That link will take you there, and you can begin to get some emails from me on a weekly basis, sharing with you some of the lessons and tactics I've discovered to get you funding with your project. The other quick thing I got to mention is that, again, I would say, in going through this process, you got to get access to the right information. And I've really tried to make that information available to you. And one of the great promos that Audible is doing right now is they can actually give you a free copy of my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula. So this book is the paint by numbers formula that goes into a powerful campaign launch. All the things that you need to do basically laid out in front of you. And you want to kind of cut through, all the fluff and get to the meat of what you got to do in order to be successful. Audible is doing this incredible thing, and you can actually get a free copy of the Kickstarter Launch Formula. All you got to do is download a free trial of Audible. Go and check that promo out at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That link is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. Crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio will take you there. All right, guys, without further ado, let's dive into this episode and discover how this student, listener, and now crowdfunding success was able to raise over $39,000 with their Kickstarter campaign. It's coming up in just a second. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we're speaking with a creator who's been able to attract over $29,000 off of an $8,000 goal, more than 370 backers, and also someone who has a really unique project and also an incredible story. Daniel, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Sal, thank you for inviting me.
Definitely, man. Let's get started, and maybe you could tell the listeners a little bit about what you've created here and also a bite-sized introduction as well.
Sure. My name is Dan Gonzalez. I was born and raised here in Miami, Florida. I went to school up in Providence, Rhode Island, and I had a faith crisis, I guess you can say, up in Providence. And I wanted to learn more about my faith, and I started writing a book. And this was back in 1993. I started writing a book that explains the Catholic Mass. And it took me 30 years to finish writing the book. I finished it last year in 2023. And I presented it to my local archbishop, who gave it its blessing, to make sure that what I'm saying is within the teachings of the Catholic Church. And I put together the book. It has tons of pictures, tons of exciting infographics and charts and diagrams, things like that, explaining the Catholic Mass. And then I started shopping it around to different publishers, Catholic publishers. And one of them was really interested, but the contract said that they had complete control over the way that the book was going to be in its final form. So they had artistic control over whether it was going to be in black and white or whether they wanted to remove the pictures. So then I decided I need to do this myself because I want to have complete control over how the book looks. I don't want to fumble the ball, after a 30-year journey because I gave it to somebody who didn't see the vision of the book. So I decided to self-publish, and I said I needed to fund the printing. And then I found out about Kickstarter, and then I found out about Sal's podcasts and YouTube videos. And I was on a trip from Miami over to North Carolina, and I just set up a playlist of all of Sal's videos, and I got a fantastic education on Kickstarter and how it works. And I launched the campaign, and I have 3 days left. And fortunately, we're almost 4x the original amount I asked for.
That's incredible, man. And just looking at the page, it is beautiful. Like, it's so well designed. You have beautiful, colorful pages, and you have lots of great information and text. How would you consider yourself? Do you consider yourself to be a publisher, a writer, an entrepreneur, a business person? How do you really consider yourself to be?
The answer is yes to all of the things that you said. I went to school to study graphic design. So I'm a graphic designer by trade. The way that the page looks, the way that the video looks, the way that the book looks, I created them. So it's easy for me because that's my background. Writing to me, it was harder. It's harder for me to write because I'm not a writer. I had to, learn writing. I had to learn storytelling. I had to learn, the proper forms of the written word. And that was a little bit more challenging for me. But as far as the way that the book is put together, the website, videos, that's what I do for a living. So that wasn't a big deal for me.
And thinking about this, clearly this is something that you are passionate about, right? And you've put a lot of thought and energy into. How long were you really preparing to go live with this campaign before you actually pushed that button? How long were you in the preparation phases of getting this project out there?
I have a company that sells religious goods that I create that help instructors, religious education instructors, and CCD teachers teach the Mass. So as I was selling these products on my other website, I was collecting emails for the past 10 years. I've been selling these products online. So I had amassed a list of about 8,000 names of people that I would communicate with, telling them about, new products that I designed. And so this core group of people that I targeted, when I came out, when I finished writing this book and I was ready to go on Kickstarter, I sent out an email to them saying, hey, you've been a loyal customer all these years. I've written this book. I think that it could help you learn about the Mass and help you not only learn about the Mass, but be able to teach it better. If you're interested, please go to this page and click that you want to sign up. So I have a constant contact account, and I created a new group of people that are my customers, but have specifically said that they're interested in the book. So that 8,000 names became about 2,000 names. So these are people that I can contact them directly. And I know that they're really interested in the book. So I started about 2 months out from my Kickstarter campaign, which launched on February 1st. And during those 2 months, I sent out 6 emails, just telling them about the product, answering questions. Since my audience skews a little bit older, I wanted to tell them, look, the Kickstarter is not Amazon Prime. You're not going to order the book and get it the next day at your doorstep. The book hasn't been printed yet. So I'm just fielding all these questions. For example, I can't do international shipping because many of the photographs are in public domain in the United States, but they may not be in public domain in France or in Spain. Yeah. So I need to only deliver to a domestic address. But I was able to find, a workaround because there's other websites that they can go to get a local address, but then that company will ship it to them. So I'm fulfilling my obligation by only shipping to a U.S. address. What happens after that, that's out of my control. So
got it. So you were in preparation phase, like you said, for about 2 months, it sounds like, and you had this kind of experience before of being an e-commerce seller and also, selling some of your other products. Was that your full-time job, or do you have another job?
No, that was not my full-time job. I had a freelance company for 15 years, but then I got married and had 2 kids, and freelance work goes up and down, and I needed to have something a little bit more solid. So no, work for a major cruise line as a graphic designer. And this is something that I do in the evenings and on the weekends. I get up quite early.
I love that, man. I think that's awesome. And, in thinking about this, was your motivation to really spread the word about how to conduct an effective mass? Was it to get validation? Was it to get the funding you need to really grow this into like a publishing empire? What was your motivation in getting this out there for people?
Well, the motivation is to teach people about the mass. I think that there's a lot of Catholics out there that are more cultural Catholics, and they do go to mass, but really because their parents told them to go to mass. So they've kind of ingrained it into themselves, but they really don't know what they're doing or what they're saying. They're just going to check off a box saying, yeah, I did it, I'm done. But really the mass it changed my life, it transformed my life. And I just wanted to help people understand the mass, understand what they're saying, understand the history of the prayers and the vestments and the vessels and everything that's used in the mass, but do it in a way that is not just great text on a page, but there's over almost 1,200 images in the book that accompany the text to help it explain in a way that's a little bit more digestible than just great text on a page.
Yeah, I think it's actually very dense material. Like if you're going to try to understand the whole history and the process, and you've made it in more like a fun, interesting, easy to consume way, right? It sounds like.
Yeah, there's these books called the Eyewitness. They're called DK Eyewitness books. They do a lot of travel books, but they also do children's books, and they're very colorful. And they have, like, if you go to a castle in Ireland, they'll show you, a cutaway of the museum of the castle, and they'll show you all the different rooms. And I really patterned my book after that because I enjoyed as a kid growing up reading those books and popular mechanics and how they break things down, and it's very visual. And I wanted to apply that type of book to the mass, to something that I don't think it has. I've read, about 100 books on the mass, and none of them are accompanied with this plethora of illustrations and infographics and charts and graphs and things like that.
So I do want to ask you a couple questions about the Kickstarter, but before we get into that, in thinking about this, for someone who maybe has fallen off of maybe you're not necessarily being as religious as they once were, or has been kind of interested in the Catholic religion or that kind of information, why do you think this is something that people should check out? Is it the learning it to do it at home? Is it to understand it when a priest is going through the process? What do you think the value is for someone who's listening to check it out?
It's all about participation. A lot of people go to mass. Well, it's not something that you can do at home per se. You can't have the mass at home. You have to actually go to the church to participate in the mass. But the word participation is very key because a lot of people would go to mass and they'll just sit there, wait for the priest to say his thing, hear, the readings, and then just go home and go about their life. And it really didn't have they didn't participate in the mass. They didn't say the prayers. And if they did, they might not know what they're saying, why they're saying it, and why they're saying it at that point during the mass. Because the mass is very particular. You say certain things at certain points because you said something previously and you're going to do something after. And you stand, sit, and kneel at certain points because of certain things that are happening during the mass. And I think that the more people are aware of that, the more their participation is going to increase. It's just like a football game. If you don't understand the rules of football, you just see people running around, jumping up and down, kicking a ball, and you have no idea what it means. But once you assimilate the rules and you assimilate, the process, you can actually enjoy the athleticism of Dan Marino or Jerry Rice, and you can really marvel in what they're doing, why they're doing it, because the rules are already ingrained in you. And this is what I want the book to do, to ingrain the process and creating the ritual. That way you can enjoy the mass.
Yeah, it sounds like it's about making the decision to be more intentional, right? About your faith or your spirituality, whatever word you want to put on it. Awesome, man. Love that. So in thinking about the campaign, I mean, if we were to really zoom in to the night before you went live with this, what was kind of going through your head? What were you thinking? What were you feeling?
I was about to lose my lunch because imagine you're preparing for a party for 30 years and you don't know if someone's going to show up or not.
Yeah.
That was the situation with the book. It took me 30 years to write the book. I'm about to press this green button that says go live. And people might say, no, thanks. And that's 30 years of your life, and in the balance here. But fortunately, once I pressed the green button that says, yes, I want to go live, within 25 hours, it was fully funded, and we're almost at 4x of the original asking. So it was nerve-wracking. That night before, I was just pacing the floor saying, am I doing the right thing? Am I not doing the right thing? I'm sure that many of your creators can attest to. Some days you think, oh my God, this is such a great thing. And then other days say, wow, this is the worst thing. This was such a waste of time. And you,
that doubt.
You
Yeah.
battle this inside of you, and then you finally just let it fly. And fortunately for me, it's worked out.
You had the benefit of experiencing it firsthand, but also learning about the process. Is there any tip or advice that you would really turn up the volume on that you feel like was very important when it came to
Yeah.
being successful with your projects?
It's something that you said in many of your videos, is that you have to take people with you. You have to have your people. You have to have your group that they're cheering for you. Yes, they want the book, but they're cheering for you. They want you to succeed. They've invested in you personally. I sent out 6 email updates before the launch of the campaign. I talked to them about why I did it, that my struggles in college with my faith, and they really are invested in me as a person and my own spiritual journey, and they want me to succeed. So they're buying the book. Yes, they want the book. They want to read the book, but they're investing in me, and I think that's the biggest. I don't know if all products can take that angle, but if you can, help people understand that there's a real person behind the book or the gadget or the widget or whatever it is that they're on Kickstarter for, and have them personify it, have it be something that's real to the audience. And you have to have this audience with you. It's not build it and they will come, press the green button and all of a sudden all these wonderful sales are going to come in. No, not at all. You have to bring your audience, and they have to be ready to support you from day one.
I think that's so well said. And I think it really also rings true to this idea of the more that you can educate and talk about the process, the more people feel like they can participate, right, in the process as well.
And one of the email updates was, okay, let's talk about Kickstarter. What is it? What is it not? And I put up side-by-side comparison. When you go to Amazon and you say add to your cart and you say checkout, you're going to get a smiling box the next day sitting on your porch because that's Prime. This is not what's going to happen. The book has not been printed. And then I go through the processing. Once the campaign is over and it's successfully funded, I'll be using this money to print the book. It's going to take 4 months or so to get here. I'm adding another 2 months just in case. So you won't get your book until August. I plan on delivering before that, but I always want to under deliver. How was that saying? You want to
under promise, over deliver.
Yeah, that's what I want to do, because if they get it early, they're happy. If they get it late, they're upset. So I think I'll be ready for June, but I told what's on the website is that you'll get your thing by August.
Now, a lot of people, when they hear that, they might be like, gosh, darn it, that sounds really scary to say that, like to admit to people that they might not get it for a couple of months, or that it's not fully created yet. You only have the prototype. Do you just have to lean into that fear, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have the printing company send me a full-blown sample of the book. And I used it extensively on the website, and I took YouTube videos of me just flipping through the book, my hand holding the book so they can see, the proportion of how thick the book is. So having that prototype was extremely useful in allaying any fears that people would have that this is just vaporware, that it really doesn't exist. And once I get your money, I'm going to try to figure things out. I alluded to my previous business, of selling online for the past 15 years. So people were really comfortable with that.
Got it.
No one emailed me or messaged me saying, "Hey, is this a real thing? I'm kind of on the fence. I'm not sure about if you're going to be able to deliver or not." That was never the case.
If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist, fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. So it sounds like you really put a lot of work into making sure the audience was warmed up, and then you kind of announced it. Are there any actions you took throughout the campaign that helped you maintain that momentum? Because that's another thing that I think a lot of people struggle with. Was there anything you did to try to maintain momentum that worked for you?
Absolutely. I went on 4 podcasts. I went to the Facebook groups, which is when we did our one-on-one. That's something that you recommended that was never even on my radar. And many of the sales came from Facebook groups. I contacted them directly. I used Reddit. I joined many Catholic groups on Reddit. And once I became ingratiated to them, I talked to the admins and they allowed me to announce my book on the Reddit site. I went to radio shows, 2 radio shows. There's many Catholic radio shows on Sirius Satellite and just local people doing their own radio shows. I developed a PowerPoint presentation, and I asked churches if I can give a talk on the Mass. And then at the end, I would say, oh, by the way, this content was all taken from my book. And, here's these rack cards. I created some rack cards that have a QR code that they could scan that would take them directly to the Kickstarter site. And I would pass those out, and I would get, 20, 30 sales right after I would be giving the talk at a church, and there would be like maybe 200 people in the audience.
I love that, man.
And on the PowerPoint, I would have, that's the last slide, the QR code, and people would be taking out their phones during the talk and scan it, and I would see the sales coming in right while I'm standing there at the podium.
That must be so incredibly rewarding. I mean, not only to have people be so excited that they're going to get a copy of your book right then and there, but also just kind of growing in your marketing knowledge and, being able to grow this in kind of like a grassroots fashion. I'm sure that's very rewarding to go down that path.
It's very rewarding and very humbling to know that that's something that I wrote. And this goes into like the bigger purpose of it. Something that I wrote is going to actually increase somebody's participation at Mass, that might get them closer to God, that might, help them in their life. This is, beyond just, hey, I want to make a book and make money on it. This is more of a personal quest, because something that I was struggling with during college, my faith. And if I can help someone else understand the Mass better and put them on the right path with God and their life and their family, to me, that's the reward.
Now, on that point, why do you think that so many people meet or come to a point in their life where they maybe do question that, right? They do question something that they were once confident in. Why do you feel like that happens for people who are reading your book and, people worldwide?
Sure. I think that has to do with education, religious education. As far as in the Catholic world, when you do your first communion, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years old, there's really, you do your confirmation, and then there's nothing for you until you get married. There's no formation. There's no further education, evolution of your knowledge. So people's knowledge in the Catholic world about the Mass is their 7-year-old or 8-year-old understanding of just memorizing prayers and this and that and the other thing. But if you don't evolve your faith and you don't start saying, okay, this is why I say that, this is what it means here at the Mass, I'm actually offering myself and my effort and my pains and my struggles, and I'm uniting that to the sacrifice of Christ. It's very, I don't want to get too theological on this. Yeah. But once you understand that background, it's going to increase your participation. It's going to make all the troubles that you have in life make sense, I think. And it's just that we need to evolve our understanding of the Mass. And that's what this book is it's to update your faith that you probably haven't looked at ever since you did your first communion.
Yeah, I mean, in listening to that, to kind of rephrase it, I'd say, in the earlier years, it sounds like you are directly getting access to the right information, right? You're surrounding yourself with a certain group of people. And as you maybe get older or transition in life, you aren't, accessing that same information that you did before. And sometimes the people around you, right, also change.
Yeah, you definitely surround yourself with a different group of people. But when we received our education at 7 or 8 years old, it was tailored for that age. And it's up to us then to update it, to evolve our knowledge. And we have to go out and get it. And hopefully this book is going to fill that gap of people that after, they become adults, they become parents, and they want to pass on the faith to their children. You're like, oh, but I really don't know what's going on at Mass. And Mass is like, for Catholics, that's the center of everything. All the sacraments devolve their power from the Mass. And it's just having that understanding to be able to pass it on to your children, to not only for their children, but for yourself as well. And hopefully that's what this book will allay those fears.
So, yeah, sounds very, very well intentioned and sounds like a great message. To kind of circle back to the project itself, one other question I had for you, and I think this is actually really important, is that there's so much education, information, podcasts online nowadays about crowdfunding. Do you feel like there was anything that didn't really apply to your project, or was there anything that surprised you, or that you felt like was kind of like a myth, if you will, when it comes to what you've learned about the process?
Well, I'm not out of the woods yet. This is my first Kickstarter campaign. I have 3 days left, and then I'm going to turn my eyes towards fulfillment. And I know that there's backer kit and there's a pledge something. I forgot what it was called. So I'm still trying to figure that part out. I hope that there's no surprises down the road. I chose to do the shipping as part of our consultation, to do it afterwards, after the campaign is over, rather than collect the shipping fees during the campaign. So I'm still trying to figure all that out and figure out the logistics of, getting the pledges back to the backers once the book comes in. So I haven't gotten to that far, but as far as beforehand and everything that I've experienced, nothing has really surprised me per se. It was just making it concrete. Like, I know I had to talk to my audience. I know I had to inform them, but just getting a systematic way of getting constant contact, being able to contact them in a predictable, neat, timely fashion, I think was really the game changer for me.
Got it. And if you were to be able to, let's just say, go in a time machine, right, and go back a couple of months, we'll just say like 6 months ago, would there be anything you would have done differently, or would you sort of play it the same way you have? I mean, you've obviously been super successful, 3 times, your goal, more than that. Would you have done anything differently if you had more time?
If I had more time, I would have developed my PowerPoint presentation a little sooner, and I would have already organized talks with different parishes. I've only given the talk twice, and during the talk and right afterwards, I can see the sales just skyrocket. But it took me a while to do that PowerPoint, and I was doing it as the campaign was going on. If I could turn back time, I would have developed that PowerPoint presentation and make it really tight, make it a solid 1 hour, very interactive, and then already lined up each weekend, one Saturday and Sunday each weekend during the course of the campaign, to give that talk, because I know that would have generated more sales. I've only done it twice, and each time I think that's the biggest catalyst for bringing in sales.
That's so interesting that you say that. And this idea of having a presentation, it's almost like you're giving people a bite-sized version, right, of the book, which kind of whets their appetite and then gets them excited about backing.
That's exactly right. I take some of the content from the book and put it into the PowerPoint, and it's like the book is very visual, so the slides of the PowerPoint are very visual. I made the talk very dynamic. I'm asking them questions and how they feel about this, and there's sound and there's music and there's videos. So it's a very lively presentation. It's very interactive. And I would have definitely given that talk, I don't know, 20 times. And I'm sure it would have been, it would have bore food.
Well, one other tactical question I had, and I feel like I have to ask you this because you have a great background in design, right? And graphic design. Do you have any thoughts on putting together a really compelling page? Because yours looks awesome. Like, it looks so cool. You have different colors and fonts, and it looks very professional, right? Do you have any advice on for a beginner or someone who's just kind of getting into this to put together a good page? Any thoughts on what makes a good page?
I think that a lot of it has to do with branding. You have to develop a color palette. Let's say that, you choose 2 or 3 colors, that this is my branding colors. Create a logo for yourself. Choose a tone, like the way that you speak. Is it very comforting? Is it very informal? Is it more formal? Is it more academic? Is it more comforting? And stick to your brand. That way, if you go to the Kickstarter page, or if you go to my website, or if you go to the book itself, they all have the same color palette, the same type of imagery, the same type of overall feel and colors. I think that it lends a lot of credulity. It builds confidence in people that you know what you're doing, that the pictures aren't haphazard, and it's not like, oh, I used blue on this headline and green on this one, and there's no reasoning why. I think that branding is such a powerful thing, and that's something that I studied, my entire career.
Yeah.
And it's just something it's central to having a good page. And you have to really use a lot of images for your Kickstarter page. If you have too much text, they're just not going to read it. You have to intersperse it with images and charts, graphs, something.
And you also have some great GIFs. The only thing I'd add to that is I think having that kind of continuity of feel, it makes it seem like the book is also going to be good. It's kind of like, oh, this guy knows what he's doing with the graphics on the page. Clearly, it's going to be an epic book when I get it.
Yeah, definitely. If the page is well crafted, I think that it's just only going to increase confidence in the product. Like, if I'm seeing what you're showing me, which is the page, which I can see, I know that the book is going to be great, which I can't see. I don't have it in my hands just yet. But what you're showing me in your skill, in your aptitude, in what you can deliver to me presently is working. So I know the book is going to be good. So yeah, it only increases confidence in people moving forward to buy the book.
Well said. Well said. Well, my friend, where can people go to learn more about your campaign, and also what website can they go and check out to learn more about what you have created here?
They can go to massexplain.com, and there they'll see a trailer video for the book, and there's buttons everywhere that says pre-order on Kickstarter, and that'll jump you over to the Kickstarter campaign page. I would give out the URL, but as we all know, it's a very long, confusing URL. So it's best just to go to massexplain.com, see the video, and then that'll jump you over to the Kickstarter page. And there's only 2 days left.
Okay. So make sure to link that up in the show notes for massexplain.com. And my final question for you, and we can end on this note. You can either end with a quote that you've heard in your life that really resonates with you. It could be advice to a beginning creator, just a word of encouragement when it comes to their project, or it could be a final tip about crowdfunding. And we can end on that note.
I think that you just have to find something that is your passion. Something that you think about before you go to sleep, the thing that you think about when you wake up in the morning, the thing that you think about and that you want to do if you didn't have to put food on the table and you didn't have to, pay for health insurance for 4 people. That's the thing I think that you should go after. That's whatever occupies your mind when it's not occupied with things that you have to think about. I think that's your passion. And this was my passion. This is my passion. And this is what I want to talk about and do for the rest of my life, is talk about the mass and develop different ways of having people understand the mass better, whether it's through the book or products or a video or a YouTube channel. So everything is going to, for me, revolves around the mass because of the experience that I had. And I think it's just finding that watershed moment in your life, or that one thing that happened, and then build your life around that.
Well said. Well said, Dan. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it. And we'll be sure to link up everything in the show notes. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Sal.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. I hope you took away some nuggets of gold when it came to this episode, and as well as some new techniques which you can apply in the live component or the live phase of your campaign in order to get more funding. So that's kind of like a fun fact behind the scenes. My uncle was actually a priest. He's passed on at this point in time, and it's great the work that he was able to do. But he was actually a priest, and he did impact my life a lot. And in one of the ways that I just didn't really expect, which was, I've told this story before in the podcast, but my uncle loved to play the game of chess, and he was so good at it. He was literally one of the smartest people that I've ever met in his life. But he decided to dedicate his life to helping other people, through the religion which he practiced. And every single Christmas time, he would gather with me and we would play different games. And one of the games was chess. And every single time I played chess with him, he would beat me, like, so easily, right? And it got to be really, really frustrating because I would never be able to win at this game. And I was never good at, games like that and puzzles and figuring out codes. And it just really wasn't in my skill set, I would say, to be able to figure out those kinds of like mathematical problems and games. So at one point, I just kind of gave up and I was like, I'm never going to get good at this. One day in Massachusetts, I was at a used bookstore and I happened to stumble upon an actual book that talked about chess strategy. And it said how you can go from beginner to being a great chess player, right? So I was like, okay, I'll try it out. So I took out this book and I started to read through it, and I started to actually understand the game a tiny bit better. I started to understand the rules of the game, some of the strategic know-how, some of the tactics that I could use, and I started to study this every once in a while and take it out. And after a couple of weeks, I actually ended up playing my uncle again, and it blew my mind, it boggled my mind. But this time when I played him, I actually won. It was like one of the coolest moments in my life that I actually beat someone who I considered to be such a great player and so intelligent at this game. And all I really did when I think about it is I learned about the tactics and the strategy that went into winning the game. Now, whether it's chess or with crowdfunding or with another pursuit in your life, other people that are far smarter than you or I have figured out proven formulas that work in order to get a result. If you're trying to learn how to play tennis, you got to get a tennis instructor. If you're trying to learn how to play golf, you got to get a golf coach who can help you with your swing and already knows the proven formula, right, to really have a great slice. So in that kind of vein of thought, one of the things that I realized was that Nothing like this exists in the crowdfunding realm. So I've been trying to put out free education, free information, of course, to help you get access to that so you can then move forward with this area of your life. But in addition, I wanted to make myself available via individual one-on-one coaching calls. So this is kind of like not just reading the book on chess strategy, but having someone who's been battle worn, who's really gone through the trenches, who knows exactly what they're doing to teach you and to share with you and to guide you through that process. And if that's something that you feel like you'd like to have help with, you'd like a little bit of guidance, you'd like a little bit of help, you'd like to get feedback as well on your marketing campaign or how you're planning this and really set a strong foundation for the launch of your crowdfunding campaign, go and check out my individual coaching call option at crowdcrux.com/coaching. That link is crowdcrux.com/coaching, crowdcrux.com/coaching. We'll take you there, and I will link up that as well down below in the show notes. So wherever you are in the world or whatever you've been going through up until this point in time, thank you so much for arriving at this destination. And I hope that you use this as a battle cry to take action in this area of your life, that you plow through those obstacles, that you're willing to even embrace a little bit of getting outside of your comfort zone, to be able to achieve, to get funding, to have success show up in your life, and to get a product out there or to build a brand that's going to ethically impact the world for the positive. Thank you so much. My name is Sal, and I will see you next time.